The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I think we'll go right to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, 3 preschool students were recognized. We have asked the students and their families to attend tonight's meeting. Assistant Superintendent O'Brien, I think that you wanted to honor some special students.
Yes, so first of all, congratulations on this outstanding achievement, 1,000 books before kindergarten. That's amazing. We have 3 students that the district would like to recognize, and we have certificates for. The first student is Nora Chan. Oh, it is? Yeah. The second student we have is McKinley Lau. And our third student is Alicia Bastos.
Absolutely.
So if the chair would like to pause and do a group photo, or?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to come up here? We going out there? What do you want to do?
Why don't we go here again?
Yeah.
They're coming up here? All right. Challenge, but
But all those books that you.
I do it on tape now. Everything's on
Yeah.
tape. You still up?
Sorry. We just wanted to notify, we do not have specifics on how many families. I do not know if the mayor has more updated information. We're still waiting to confirm. But we have been notified by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that up to 140 additional new homeless families could be relocated to Marlborough. I believe that some of the families have already been relocated, but I don't have any specific details. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, disappointing process. DHCD has dropped the ball once again. I received one phone call back in December that we were getting some homeless in the extended stay. We'll update you every week as to how many and how many kids and everything else. That was the last phone call I received until about a week and a half ago when the new secretary called me to let me know, in addition, we had 40 immigrant families moving into the Holiday Inn. They would be letting us know who, how many, what, where, from where, and next thing I knew, I got an email from Mary saying, in addition to that, there's another 130 coming in. I was given a heads up from someone in Boston that they will be taking over the entire Holiday Inn for 170 families to live down there. So I'm very frustrated for many reasons. One, there's hotels in the state that aren't full all the time, where ours are. We run over 70% regularly, so I'm losing all that rooms taxed. There's also many communities that see decreasing student population. We have no room for these kids in the fall, and we're talking probably in the area of several hundred kids, depending on where things fall toward school time. So there's other opportunities. There is no answer on a local level. There is really no answer on a state level. There's no answers. 50 governors need to get together and point to Washington, tell them to go in a room and come out with a bipartisan plan to deal with the problem. And they refuse to do that. So now it's hitting the communities. 61 communities in the state right now are dealing with it, and it's going to get worse. Because all they're doing is we have an open faucet, and we're putting sandbags around the sink. And eventually we're going to run out of sandbags. And the best part is, they just hired a new executive director for tourism in the state of Massachusetts, so she might as well pack her bags and go home, because if we're going to use the hotels for the immigrant population, then we're going to have some issues. But we have a housing issue within the state prior to this, so that's a problem. And we need immigration in the country. We need immigrants to come here. We need the working people to come here. And that's one of my questions to the secretary is, all right, we have these people here. How do I get them to work? I mean, I have jobs down in that area. They don't need to have public transportation. There's plenty of jobs down there. And I'm planning on, once I find out who we have, I'd like to run some English classes down there this summer, some intense English classes. It was a recommendation from Attorney Bergeron, which was a great idea. Obviously, communicating with some of these people is going to be a lot better than not being able to communicate at all. But I can't hire a company to go in and do the classes till I know what I'm dealing with. So I wanted to give them one more day to try to figure this out. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. The secretary's been in place for about a month now and this has been thrown at him, so I understand he's a little behind the 8 ball, but they have to be in communication with us, and to this point, they've really dropped the ball. So that's where we are as far as I know. As soon as I get an update, you people will know. Yep.
Can we do anything to help you, which will obviously then help us by reaching out to, at minimal, our representatives and our senator to try and get ears going on the other side to try to move stuff?
And like I said, I talked to Congresswoman Trahan. She assured me months ago when I talked to her about this, we'll be sending you some funds to help you with this. I don't want the money. I want a resolution. I want it fixed, and I'm not the one being paid to fix this, but I have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it. But reaching out to the federal delegation that's where it needs to be done. And our state representatives need to stand up and You know, everyone's pointing to the finger of a couple of governors that are moving people around. Well, there's really no difference to coming to Massachusetts, going to Boston, and having them move around throughout the state. I mean, it's all the same thing, it's all the same problem. We just need a process in place, you know, so we can get some immigrants working and get them legal and get it all working again, because right now it's not working. So, but thank you, and again, any reaching out you do is only gonna help. And like I said, I know they can all point the fingers at each other. They're very, very good at that. They need to go in a room, lock the freaking door, and come out with a solution. Yeah?
I would say one of my concerns, and I think this goes back to when it started.
Yep.
Best Western, where they were, had no efficiencies. Extended stay was a great idea because it at least gives them a kitchen. Back at the Holiday Inn, they lose that again. So, I mean, are we gonna have Board of Health issues? Are you gonna, I mean, like the whole food thing and.
We have certain, well, I've been told a couple things. First of all, there are some loose ends, both at the extended stay and Holiday Inn. They need some final inspections on some renovations they've done in the past that they've never done. We have fire alarm issues at the Holiday Inn that have never been dealt with. I've been told no matter what our building inspector, our health department says, the state will come in, send their own people in and approve it.
Lovely.
But, I mean, I don't know if you want to chime in or you want me to chime in as far as the conversation that Holiday Inn has had, but they're getting 3 meals catered a day.
Well,
Don't worry about it.
So that was going to actually be one of my questions, because, you know,
Yeah.
I was putting kind of like
Meals
the
are
2 and 2
taken care of.
together based upon the food update that you will talk to later. But, I mean, in reviewing that information and then knowing what we knew so far, it seems like we've got to find a meeting of the mind somewhere, because otherwise we're going to have additional food being delivered and food being given somewhere else, and, you know, a lot of stuff where maybe
They're
we don't
getting
need it.
approximately, the number I heard was $189 a night per room, and approximately like $45, $50 a day per person for food. And they're catering 3 times a day, why wouldn't they?
Is there a
So-
point person at the Holiday Inn that?
No, they really seem to want to be avoiding anyone from City Hall. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's their option to join. Hudson has the same issue. They obviously, their hotel is much smaller. Holiday Inn in Hudson is participating. Holiday Inn in Concord is participating. 61 communities are having hotels participate. We've stayed out of it since the way back prior to Charlie Baker, because our hotel rates were so high. I think they were paying in the $80 range, $85 range at that point. Now it's over double that. So now they're paying attention, saying $189, you know. They get a heck of a headache. They're gonna be pulled off everything we can pull them off as far as sending some of our hockey teams and soccer teams and everyone else up there. We you know.
Not gonna have room for them anyway.
Right. So they're all fighting right now for rooms. Prior to this, hockey and soccer and tourism and baseball in Northborough all come here, and they've been fighting for rooms. So it's a big problem, and like I said, we just need to try to figure out what we're gonna do over the summer. If we have 300 kids, I have no freaking idea where you guys are gonna put them. No idea whatsoever. You know? Yep.
Do you have any idea of the pace of their arrival? And is it all at once, or? over
I
the
was
course of
told
time?
40, Mary was told another 130, and that totaled up to the hotel being full.
We have no idea how quickly they're
No,
coming, anything?
no,
Some
I
are
know
here
that
already.
some of there are, obviously, you go up there, you know some are there, but they had some hot water issues already. Holiday Inn's had its troubles over the years, improvement-wise, so But we're just making sure it's safe for whoever's there. And last thing I knew, they were waiting for some fire alarm inspections and getting hot water back.
Another question I had,
Yeah.
Mary, through you. Is there some way we are planning on meeting the problem head-on, like going there to register students?
If we have some information, yes, absolutely. There is, as the mayor had mentioned, there is funding. So we've already identified, if we need additional translators, we have funding for additional translators. We just need to know what languages to target first before we hire anyone. Also, one of the other things is there may be enough to begin the school year if we needed another wraparound service provider, just for the families that are in the hotels. But we don't know that yet. We don't know how many, we don't know the ages, we don't have any information at all at this point.
And I did ask Mary, I said, can you send me the questions that
Yeah.
we have from a school side? So when I'm talking to the secretary again, I can say, these are the 5 questions we have, I need answers. And unlike the last time, between the Patrick administration and Baker administration, they were bringing kids to the extended stay, we get them all set up in school, and they move them 2 weeks later somewhere else. Whoever we end up with, we're hoping that we can work with that group, so, it's continuous, and, like I said, if we're gonna deal with it, let's deal with it, but we need some information to be able to do that. Yep.
I just had a follow-up, if you don't mind me
Yep.
saying. I'm talking about the physical act of registering kids.
Yeah.
We have our registration, and we're not busing kids here to register them, I assume. So we're gonna register them where they're at.
We would have to, because most of those families would come from the assumption that they don't have transportation. And the Holiday Inn is not the easiest location to walk from. Yes, so we would have to go to them, or we would have to arrange for a shuttle to go back and forth for us. So it would be a matter of what would be the easiest for everyone involved. We'd need to know how many students and the ages and grade levels, and if there are records involved or not.
Thank you, Ms. Nancy.
Yep.
So my question was going to be about transportation, thinking about for the school year.
Yeah.
Because that could be a very similar situation that we talked about at some of the apartment complexes, where essentially it's, one apartment complex has well over 70 kids getting on at that, one stop, if you will. And that's, that could be a huge issue where we're talking about, a bus, but also if we had that large amount, I can't envision we can only specifically put, say, the elementary students because of where they're located at Richer, because one school probably is not going to be, and I'm sorry, I'm taking I'm kind of thinking the steps out, but that just means additional transportation buses to try and get them throughout the city. So it's not just one bus, stop, pick them up, and drop off here.
It would depend on, every building has its challenges. Principal Patel's here, and what is that grade level? How many are in that grade level? In 3 and 4, and those are over 25 in those. Yes, in 2 grades right now before anyone else. So Richer School has some room, but not in every grade. So that's why my questions are targeted: how many students are under age 5? How many are over 10? Like trying to figure out how many students would be going to middle school, to high school. We do have more space in our secondary classrooms than we do in our elementary classrooms. And so we really need that information so we can just determine where students would be placed, or if we were going to be using more than one school.
So to help the mayor and to help us, can we pull together some of these questions collectively so that we can all sign on to it, to then start a paper trail of communication of sorry, but I'm going to say badgering to just say, this is the information we need. And then each week, we keep on hitting them with the information until we get something back. Because you alone, which I appreciate what you're doing, but you need more people to, sorry, the squeaky wheel, to say, this is the info we need. And unfortunately, if we don't start getting it, then we need to, get involved more with, if it has to be media. We have to go at them to say, we want to help. We need your help to help you.
And, you look at New York, and New York's, the new mayor of New York is no right-wing, crazy guy out there, but he's thrown his hands up and said, enough. And their population hasn't increased 2%. My population's gonna increase 2% overnight. So it needs to be dealt with. This needs to be dealt with at a federal level with some plan, and that's why we send them down there, is to come up with resolutions for stuff like this, so.
So I guess I'm going to put myself out on a limb, at least from the school committee standpoint. I would be more than happy to be a point person for the school committee. If you guys have any questions that you feel need to be addressed, can you siphon something to me and I'll pull something together? And then I would say then I can send something to you, Superintendent, so you can review. But from my standpoint, I feel like we need to start being vocal to help support get answers. Because I don't think any of you all do, but I'm not going to sit here and wait. I have a son that's an intern in an office in the government. Guess what he's taking in soon? So,
But I mean, what's it gonna do, so there's 2 or 3 new students in every classroom?
That's all-
Just to break it up, how is that gonna disrupt the classroom when you have, 2 or 3 new students that really can't communicate?
Excessive needs.
They just can't communicate
Plus
with
the
her.
regular influx. of
That's what I
kids that
mean,
are coming.
right.
Right. Is there any, I mean, I know this is probably premature, but, if we have we're going on the assumption that these are all non-English speaking students. We don't know that for sure, but that's the assumption. Is there any way to maybe use an alternate space temporarily for EL1 type instruction when they're?
We're gonna have to, once we get some answers, which
Yeah.
I'm anticipating answers over the next 2 weeks. And once we have those answers, now we can put a plan in place. And as the answers change or we get more answers, we can adjust the plan. But my initial question is, where are they from? What do they speak? How many are there? What are their ages?
Ages.
And let's get some classes up there immediately to get us through the summer, so at least when they do hit school in September, or if they don't hit school in September and they go to work down at one of the hotels or one of the restaurants or wherever they go to work, there's some communication that, obviously, this is where, as far as I'm concerned, this is where inclusion works really well, Some of these other ideas they have are crazy, but, I mean, as far as speaking a new language, you talk to people that got here and couldn't speak languages and didn't have all this support, they learned it pretty quickly. So, and the younger you are, the faster you learn it, from what I understand. I've said it for 12 years, I'm not an educator, but, I'm just trying to deal with this issue, so. But we'll be in touch as far as letting everyone know where we are, because they need to know what's going on too, so.
So on that though, as a follow-up,
Yep.
because our school committee meetings lessen than over the summer months, and I just want to make sure that we figure out a plan so that we can contact each other appropriately and not obviously having issues as far as open meeting law, but it seems like we need to be ready to be able to assist you and the rest of the administration and as well support and assist you as best as possible so there's a united front. So I guess I would say, if we can figure out whether it's a chain that you get a hold of the vice chair and then the vice chair can
Yep.
communicate or something like that, so that we can try and figure something out to be as effective as we can in support.
So Doug, you want to take this project on for the next few months?
I'm here for whatever you need, Mr. Mayor.
Good answer.
Until Friday.
All right, thank you all, but as we get information, we'll share it. So.
Thank you. I have attached the final report of the donations, gifts, and grants to the school department through the FY23 school year. I am grateful to the many individuals and companies that support the Marlborough Public Schools. I've also attached the Assabet Valley Collaborative end-of-year report. The report summarizes the FY23 highlights and challenges and the major priorities moving forward for FY24. Included in the packet later tonight, I will be requesting approval and a signature on a letter requested by the New England Innovation Academy. The school committee voted a conditional approval in January 2021, and that was in condition of building permits. The school has met all conditions for full approval and need to have us document that they have full approval. And finally, school improvement plans. A handful of the principals are attending the meeting to answer any specific questions regarding their school improvement plans. We can always follow up, and if we meet again during the summer, if some of them are available or additional questions need to be answered at that time, we can do that as well. Thank you.
Questions? Voting ahead, Joe.
I just have a question on the list of grants and donations and stuff. I don't see, unless I'm missing it, do we add the scholarships, the new scholarship?
So,
I mean, I know we usually get kind of a list of the scholarship, well, in the graduation
Cool.
thing. But that gentleman, the new teacher that brought the scholarship over, is that?
I don't think the high school, total
That
high
goes
school
to the
scholarships have
students.
never been included in our.
yeah, I don't think any of the scholarships are included.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an update from Finance and Operations. As you know, tonight's my last update, so it's a little longer than usual, so my apologies. Summer food services. The Marlborough Food Service team will be providing free meals to all students attending summer programming through the Marlborough Public Schools at ECC, Kane, Goodnow, and Marlborough High. Food Service Department will also have 2 open sites for breakfast and lunch for any members of our community. Those open sites are at Holy Trinity Anglican Church, which is located at 470 Lincoln Street. And I just want to remind everyone that you may access meals at the church regardless of any religious affiliation. It's just a site that we chose because of its location. Marlborough High School will also be an open site. Meals will be breakfast and lunch starting this coming Monday, actually this yesterday, and through August 17th at Marlborough High, and through Friday, August 18th at Holy Trinity Church. Food service participation update, the last one from me. FY23 was a very successful year for Marlborough Food Services. All school consistently served 70% of their students' lunch. 4 schools reached 75% for at least 1 month, and Richer Elementary reached 80% participation for the month of May. These participation levels are unrivaled in the Commonwealth, and they would not be possible without the leadership of Food Service Director Pam Whalen and our 6 phenomenal kitchen managers. They are truly wonderful. I want to congratulate them and their teams of kitchen helpers. Their commitment to meal access and equity for Marlborough students have been nothing short of inspiring. I can't think of any other school district serving this large of a percentage of their students, and I really credit them for their efforts. Transportation. The district had a strong end to a tough year in transportation services. Most routes at the end of the year were either filled by permanent drivers or covered on time by substitutes from nearby contracts. I want to credit outgoing transportation coordinator Steve Phelan for all the work he has done over the past 3 years to improve efficiencies and minimize detrimental impacts to Marlborough families despite a nationwide bus driver shortage. Steve has been a tremendous asset in this effort, and he will be greatly missed. Steve Phelan's last day is Friday, June 30. With that said, I do want to take an opportunity to welcome Felipe da Costa as Steve's replacement in this effort. Challenges will remain for transportation services in the fall. We still have a nationwide shortage of CDL drivers, and NRT is still adjusting to working as an organized union shop. As of the writing of this report, we are aware of 6 open seats for August and 3 additional likely openings. This happens annually with drivers deciding at the end of the school year that they would like to go drive somewhere else, or they are exiting their profession. Just like we have teachers that are retired, drivers also leave. So we do have some openings. There are currently 10 drivers in the pipeline. 3 of them are still training for their permits. 3 already have their permits, and 4 have already attained anywhere from 20 to 60 hours of the required 60 hours of training for CDL. So I remain confident that NRT leadership and the drivers union will remain committed to Marlborough students, and I have provided my replacement, Tom LaFleur and Felipe da Costa, with information and feedback on how FY24 can be our most successful year in the past few years in transportation. I think we've come a long way despite recent turbulence, and I think things are looking up for FY24. Capital improvements. This will be a very busy summer. It's always very busy, but this will be a very busy summer for facilities and custodians. We have a major HVAC project ongoing and underway at Jarrick. Mrs. Patel is here. She's been evicted from her offices. And we also have a large project ongoing at the Whitcomb Kitchen. Additionally, there are 800 pieces of student furniture being delivered to our schools this summer. I want to thank Custodial Supervisor Andy White, General Foreman Dan Jackson, Deputy Commissioner Rob Quinn, and Commissioner Sean Divo for their efforts and commitment to make our schools a clean, safe, and comfortable place for our students. Richer Elementary. As you know, we are currently in the Massachusetts School Building Authority's eligibility period for the Richer Elementary project. The eligibility period commenced on June 1st and will end on February 26th. We have 8 deliverables that are due by various dates between now and February 26, 2024. We have already completed 2 of those deliverables, and 2 other are very close to being complete. Again, I have notes for Tom LaFleur to prep those up. I will be working with incoming Director of Finance and Operations, Tom LaFleur, to ensure that there will be successful completions of these deadlines within the specified time frame. Lastly, thank you. I want to thank Mayor Vigent, all school committee members, the City Council for the opportunity to serve you and Marlborough students over the past 5 years. To Mary, Jody, RJ, and Patty, and all my colleagues in the school department, I have been humbled by the work that you do every day on behalf of Marlborough students and their families. It has been an honor, and I will forever remain an ambassador of the City of Marlborough. Thank you. I got through that without crying. Truly, it has been an honor, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
Okay, I'll get past the tears. More to come. Question on the summer meals. I know in the past we have provided additional meals on the Thursday or Friday for the weekend. Will we be able to do that, or are we?
We are not allowed.
Okay.
By statute, we're not allowed. But we remain committed, and Pam Whalen is fantastic If there is a need, we will find a way to address it. All we need is the information. You can reach out to myself until Friday, Tom LaFleur after Friday, Pam Whalen. The information's on our website. If there is a need within the city, we're willing to find a way to support those families.
And I just want everybody to know, it's anybody under or up to 18 years old, and they don't have to be attending Marlborough Public Schools, so
Exactly. And we
that's the key
don't-
thing.
We don't ID you, we
Yeah.
welcome you. Yeah, these open sites are there for you.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, we're not allowed because of our status with the federal program?
It's the USDA guideline. Technically, the meals have to be consumed on site, and we're not allowed to serve anyone that's not present or outside of those open sites. We can, however, if there is a need, as we identified recently, we can open new sites if needed. We reached out and immediately received approval to open a new site at the Holiday Inn. But upon speaking to the general manager, I was told that there was no need for that. But we were ready to respond if needed.
I'm sure they're eating well.
I was told so, yes.
Any other questions?
I just was wondering, how are we getting the word out? Is there information like on social media that can be shared so people are aware of it?
It's on our website. I will make sure, thank you for that question. I will make sure that Ms. Moran shares on social media as well.
I believe it's Miss Roberts now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Just got in trouble.
So I was thinking about that as well, and I'm just curious, do we have some data that we can look back on about different areas that we know may need more information, that they may not be on social media all the time, but we could potentially put up flyers here or there to try and capture some people? I'm just thinking of other routes of trying to get the word out to folks and to have something translated, you know.
What we've done in the past, that's been,
Outside of electronic.
that's also a great question. What we've done in the past is we posted on our website, social media, and then we share it through email. That those are all electronic formats of sharing. So I'm honestly not sure, but I can look into that to see if we can make some flyers to be posted in specific.
I just was thinking, like, we've talked before about community opportunities, like, are there community rooms at some of the apartment buildings? Are there some of the churches that we could reach out to and actually get something up onto bulletin boards? I'm just thinking that that might be other ways of trying to actually target, folks and make sure that the word is out.
Thank you for that question, because it did remember pre-COVID, there was a couple of community center in some areas that we had connections with. We'll see if they're reopened and if there's a place to hang some information.
Yeah, thank you. I just think that although social media and, electronic format is great, I'm just thinking that there could be other areas, like maybe at the community pools or something like that, other places at the splash pad, if there, I don't know specifically if there are boards over there. And I know we don't want to create trash opportunities either, but if there are other places where we think of, at Memorial Beach, if there's area for signage, it just might be other places to be able to reach out.
Maybe it could go on that electronic billboard that is on like Granger Boulevard that tells you trash pickup is delayed a day or whatever. But also, like, Countryside used to be a meal site.
Right.
So they must have a space where people congregate. Like,
They
they're-
did have a community center.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it reopened. It's changed a few times.
Right. So,
Yeah.
just an idea on that.
Thank you for those thoughts.
And I know we don't always use the app, but it's not even on the app as far as pushed out, so.
And then the other thing I just wanted to say, relative to specifically to capital improvements, I really wanted to thank you around, recently when we had talked about some different ideas, and you've been so welcoming to be able to work with people to try and do whatever you could. through all of these areas that you've just pointed out, I mean, like food services, and I think about all of the stuff that, you know, you worked with people through the pandemic, and you have worked tirelessly on all of these different issues, and it does not go unnoticed. It has, I'm gonna break down, I can't even do it, I'm trying.
I can't even go there.
No, but it's just, you know, I know when we had all talked and Mike was gonna move from your role and move into the superintendent position, and we had all been like, yeah, you know, and then here you came. And you were kind of like that wonderful knight to come on in and take over things and make them your own and make it special and really put your mark on things. And I think about when we talked about providing opportunities of role models of someone that our kids could look up to, and we were talking about our staff development, about providing that opportunity, and you were like this glowing example, at least for me, you were a glowing example of how, you know, kids can blossom and become wonderful things. We just need to grow, right? And you were that exact example of someone who was given opportunities and you just grew. And it's been amazing to watch you.
That means a lot. Thank you.
So we'll really miss you a lot. And thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien?
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, I have an update on our summer programs for 2023. Special education, EL, Title I, credit recovery, and camp invention programs will be running this summer, beginning Wednesday, July 5th, through Thursday, August 3rd. And that first week, typically, it's Monday through Thursday, but since 4th of July is on a Tuesday, we're going Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that first week. So first week is the only week that will be running on a Friday for the programs, except for camp convention, which is 5 days a week. While participation is still in the process of being confirmed, we again expect approximately 400 to 500 students who will join us for the summer. Transportation will again be provided, and breakfast and lunch will also be provided at the buildings. Programs will be located at ECC, Goodnow Elementary, and MHS, same as last summer. Additionally, Wickham Middle School will be hosting Jumpstart program for incoming 6th graders the weeks of July 10th through August 3rd. There'll be a variety of different activities that students will be participating in, giving them an opportunity to get to know the school, staff, and other incoming 6th grade students. Currently, there are about 60 students signed up to participate in this event. Specific dates, times, locations, and grade levels for programs being offered is included in my review.
Questions? Any questions? Thank you very much.
Not for Jody, but I have two questions. One, I forgot.
She's the one we're talking to.
I know. Thank you, Mrs. Bryan. I did have a question for the
Go.
superintendent that I forgot to ask. With the Assabet Valley Collaborative
Yep.
report, I noticed that one of the highlights was new hiring process that's been successful in achieving and maintaining full staff despite workforce shortages in the industry. Are we talking to them about what their secrets are?
Yes, we have. Actually, the whole board had a conversations about support staff and recruitment and retaining, of those positions in particular. So that has been a focus. They have the shared leadership model as well, so they're really trying to set that culture where everyone has a role in multiple different areas. So that's interesting as well. So we've been looking at that.
Excellent. My other question is, there's not a place on the agenda to talk
School
about the
improvement
school
plans.
improvement plans.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
was
not
going to
clear.
suggest if we, because it's a, Patty
kind of
didn't
part of
add
your
it.
report.
Yes, so if there are questions, they thought they got away.
Yeah. Yeah. You had nothing better to do than just come here and sit there and not even talk to us. I know some of my colleagues have questions. Who wants to go?
Can we stick
We
from,
go
start
the
with
same
one
order?
school at a
High
time,
school?
and
Yeah,
we'll go
start
through
with-
whoever
Start with
has.
Dan.
Start with Kane.
Come on, Dan, we'll get the fire rolling here.
I thought you were starting with Kane,
We don't have
She
any.
hasn't made it
yet.
okay?
And the order of them, the high school was the first one.
Yes.
Okay.
That is true.
Go for it.
Yeah. Just trying to pull it up. There we go. Okay, I'll start. This is a clarifying question more than anything because I'm not familiar with it.
Sure.
In 1.1 on the PLCs and so on, the appointment pass system and Panther Pass, can you elaborate on that, what that is?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. Thank you.
Dan.
Hi. It's good to see you all. So we use an electronic pass system called eHall Pass.
Okay.
And the teachers are trained on how to create what's called appointment passes. So if they want to see a student during Panther, if the student needs to get caught up on work in a specific class, then that teacher can assign the student an appointment pass to come and see them when Panther block is occurring.
And it's only during Panther period? It's not any other time, or?
The appointment pass is only when there's sort of like a free time throughout the school day. Outside of that would be class time. And so the students wouldn't necessarily be leaving one class to go to another class. But when Panther's occurring, that's when we primarily use it. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Of course.
Can
Yeah.
I just jump on that for one question?
Yeah.
Do they ever use something like that for like guidance or the SACs?
Yes.
When students have
Yes, they do.
appointments? They
Yeah,
use
that's a
that
great
kind of
question.
system?
They do. They do. We've, over the last year, we've moved everybody onto the same system. So, and as a building, as a school, teachers and leaders and administrators, we can track student activity with passes as well. So we used it to set benchmarks with respect to the number of intervention passes, for example, being given during Panther. When we started with that focus and that goal, we had about 25% of the teachers using Panther and using appointment passes to address student needs with classes. And as we continued to attack it, continued to really structure the time well, we got that up to 50% in the spring. And so we're going to keep doing that going into next year.
I'm sorry.
No,
Just
no,
since
go right
we're
ahead.
on this topic. So just like in terms of how it actually functions, like.
Sure.
how- do they get like something on their
It's
tablet or on their?
It's a platform that they
Yeah.
log into, and it's all connected to our Google ecosystem, if you will,
Yeah.
and the Google environment. And student goes in, the student can create a pass, or the teacher can create a pass. And then the teachers approve the pass, and it's all tracked online. So they have a site, for example, if I'm out in the halls and I see some students out in the halls, I can bring up the site live on my phone, and I can see if they have passes and they're supposed to be in the halls. So it's a real-time platform that we can use to track student activity. We have some plans to utilize it to continue to see, like, for example, how often certain students are out of the room. So as you probably saw in our school improvement plan, chronic absenteeism is something that we're concerned about, we're focused on. Well, chronic absenteeism is one part of the story, and you also have these class avoidance issues that are happening during the school day with some students who are not absent per se, but they're not where they're supposed to be either. So we're going to try to use the system to address that as well.
Good, keep going.
We leave that same point, though.
Yeah.
As far as then the intervention during Panther period
Yeah.
and using those passes, are those passes also used for intervention that is done outside of the school hours, like after school? I'm just trying, like, sometimes kids are gonna need to have separate appointments that may not be during that Panther period.
Sure.
How are you tracking that, or are you able to track that?
Like after-school help.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question. It's an idea that I can bring back to the Building Advisory Committee, because we've really structured this together with the teachers that are a part of that committee and leadership that's a part of that committee. And so we've been trying to get better at what we do. I think the after-school help idea is a good one to talk through, because it is something we should be pulling data from, especially with students that we know that aren't doing well academically. We could match that up like at the end of the term and see how many times were they going to extra help if they were in danger of failing or not doing so well in a class. So I like the idea. I'll bring it back.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like the kid that maybe does have multiple classes where they need assistance.
Sure.
And they can't necessarily get to everything during Panther period, but yet we want to actually be able to track that information. And I mean, I don't know your system well enough, but I mean, it seems like we need to figure out how we can still get that information that we still have, a child, that many students that need it in not only, calc, but also in, ELA, whatever it is.
Sure, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Thank
okay.
you.
Sorry, thanks.
Great idea.
Oh, I should keep going? Okay. Since you're the first one up, I guess, to talk a little about NWEA
Sure.
numbers.
Yeah.
After Atul was here and mentioned the failure rate of the freshman class,
Yeah.
and obviously we don't know what the specific classes were that were affected by it, as far as whether it was,
Sure. It was a
ELA or-
combination of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously, the NWEA numbers are representative of the issues.
Yep. Yeah.
In ninth grade, since that we're testing with those right now.
It's 9th and 10th. So the data that you see is actually the growth data for the school from spring 2022 to spring 2023.
Oh, okay. Sorry, great.
And so it does demonstrate growth, which is, it's going in the right direction. If you look at where we started immediately post-COVID when we came back to school, you can measure up the growth. You see, for example, in ELA, rather in mathematics, sorry, that we went from.
Which page are you on for your
I'm on
thing?
page 6.
6, okay.
That we went from the 24th percentile to the 35th percentile in the course of that year. And then also you see a much larger growth in ELA, where we went from the 14th percentile to the 30th percentile. So we want to keep the growth going
Trajectory.
in the right direction. Our biggest issue, my humble opinion as the principal, is chronic absenteeism and trying to get students in front of teachers on a more consistent basis. So that is what we are attacking this year as a part to continue to keep the trend going up. And we don't want to flatline. We haven't reached, we don't want to plateau. We have not reached where we want to be yet. So we need to continue to look at what the issues are in the school, supporting the students and the families in order to continue the climb. And chronic absenteeism we're shining a spotlight on it for next year.
And to that, and this goes through really all the buildings, but middle school and high school, especially with the PLC time, the safety net that PLC is supposed to be providing, the ability to have the SAC there or guidance counselor or something with the teams to be able to identify early on
Sure.
when we have kids.
Yeah.
And obviously you guys are going to set your protocols on how you're going to be doing this, but these numbers are staggering, and we know the more that are out, the less chance you have of improving.
Yeah.
And those children learning anything. Just you can't. It's not going to just soak up by not being there. So
Absolutely, and communication is key. What we've gotten better at this year is the communication, not just that we're having with teachers about how things are looking across the school, but with students directly. And so I know Atul spoke at the last meeting to the freshman class meeting. I think what was important this year is that students know coming into the year how we're trying to set up the expectations, the pitfalls that we want them to be careful of, the things that we celebrate at the school, like the fact that we want them to take ownership of their learning, take ownership of the direction of the school. So we try to establish that message at the onset of the school year, and we did that across all of the grade levels. We set up meeting schedules where we weren't rushing through information for students, and then also inviting translation services to be a part of those meetings to make sure every student gets that information. And then at the end of the year, well, mid-year, we did another another meeting with students who were struggling. And we pulled them in to a meeting. We said, this is what's going on. This is where you're struggling, whether it's with attendance, and that's ultimately affecting your achievement. Those are two of the strongest relationships we see in education, attendance and achievement. And so we had that very frank discussion with a smaller population, a subset of the students who were struggling. Then we ended the year with a recap meeting for everybody. And that was the meeting that Atul came in when they talked about the freshman failure rates. And that was across the board too. So that's all content areas. So a freshman that may have failed, an elective area was also included in that percentage. But we want to be more communicative with all of our students so they know what's going on in the school and what the potential outcomes could be, both good and not so good, and that we're there to support them. Really, that's the message we're trying to send. Not that you've done something wrong, but we're here to support you through this. This is what we're seeing right now, and we want to change that.
Good, thank you. I got to call you out on safety and discipline and PD for
Sure.
copping out on the refer to the
Yeah.
district-wide plan.
Yeah. No. So we just did district-wide PBIS discussions last week.
I know.
So number one, I always say, especially to the school council, that this is a living document.
Yes, it is.
And it gets modified as the year goes on. So I think it's wonderful that we are presenting them at the end of the year, because I'm a big proponent of the fact you start planning for next year at the end of the current year you're in. A lot of school districts have these discussions in the fall when school's already underway. You've already got a million things on your plate, and it's kind of hard to establish goals at that point. So thinking ahead, I think, is always a good thing. But
I mean,
it is a
I
living
understand
document.
that the PD is integrated in many of the
Sure.
other goals and so on.
Yeah.
I think the safety and discipline, though, there are things that Kane focuses on that are different than what you
Sure.
at the high school focus on.
Absolutely.
So
all the country.
I would like to see your own goals there for some of the things that you can
Yeah.
address in your own building.
So-
That would be my preference. That's, I'm one of seven.
So we
It's
are,
on my
we did
list.
the district-wide PD last week on it. So we had a consultant that came in and had analyzed kind of where we were each at as a school. And so the high school has its sort of baseline in terms of where we're at. The director of alternative education, which should be officially appointed hopefully soon, that is going to be also one of their focus areas for school improvement. So you will see a school-specific goal in that area.
Great. And then the parent and community support, again, the off-site locations, I think we really, as a community, need to talk about that.
Sure.
And to find them, because obviously Wickham and the high school reach out, to all the fingers of the community. So
Yeah.
it trickles down, but we've got to establish it, and maybe the mayor's office or MEDC or somebody can work collaboratively with these, with the community to find locations that will give us the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're looking at the work happening with the community liaison team that the district has, and we're hoping that as a starting point is going to help us answer some of those questions. Some of the things that we see at the high school level is the revolving door situation. And when you look at whether it's our dropout percentage or our graduation rate, where we get greatly affected is by students who come to Marlborough High School, and then for some reason that we're not unaware of, they stop coming to Marlborough High School. It gets reflected in our data, and we're wondering if some outreach to the community would be beneficial in terms of number one, we want the meeting to be directed, if we can, by community members and by parents in terms of what they want to hear about. But we also want to throw a plug in there for the importance of education, achieving a high school diploma, why we want you to stay and not leave Marlborough High School, in that we have all these amazing programs. We have alternative programs at night. So we're looking to hopefully get the communication out there to the community in a setting that's more comfortable and hopefully impact some of those statistics as well in doing so.
Great. Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
Who's next? Tennessee.
Sure. So, thank you, because a number of the things that you hit were on my list. Definitely would like to have some follow-up about the discipline issues. So would love to see you sometime later on in the summer or early fall, whatever, sometime, which I think would be helpful. Relative to the SASS survey that was mentioned in here, obviously that time frame's off a little bit only because, sorry, I'm still a member, I guess still a parent, and realized that survey link came out a little bit later because there was a glitch or whatever. So I'm assuming we're going to be off a bit on having the follow-up information around there.
In terms of the students taking the survey?
Getting actual students and family results and then being able to look at it because it's, going to be at least a few weeks later, I would think.
Yeah, we had done that in that May-June timeline this year.
Yeah.
The part of the issue with the Safe and Supportive Schools grant was the timeline in which we had to accomplish that grant. It was kind of rolled out in April, and then we put together a school plan to try and collect the data that the state, and this is on DESE in terms of their planning, rolled out in April, asked us to complete all those tasks by June.
Yeah, we
short
may need
window.
to wrap up then to let people know that it's almost done, time frame wise, only because I think, what?
It's dumb. Why do they do it so late? Is that unusual?
I think they like to keep us on our toes.
They're asking for data that is not going to be all that useful for.
Right.
What we tried to do, because of the short timeline, was directed towards family and community engagement, because we knew that was going to be one of our priority areas for next year.
Which is great, but the problem is and again, it was driving me nuts looking at it, is it's all coming out literally as everybody was getting ready to graduate.
I know. Yeah.
And so the likelihood of anybody or a lot of people, which you want people to respond and to get truthful data, you actually need to provide it in a way that people are going to give you data.
Sure.
And the likelihood of you guys getting information that's really going to be helpful is pretty minimal. Sorry, I'm not trying to be negative Nelly, but
no, I don't disagree with you. I think the timeline wasn't good at all.
Yeah, so I look at that and I go, that's great to hear that, but I feel like we're going to need something else to be using for information to help us, really get a better gauge, because I don't know that you're really going to be able to use much of that as to give you a really good gauge.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and you're talking specifically about family engagement and communication. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't. It was a really tight time frame at a really tough time of the year. So even when you have things that you want to do, you sometimes don't even get to what you want to do, much less the stuff that's kind of the extra. So how's that data really going to help us to really make informed decisions that's going to be useful?
Sure.
Yep. And I went off on that and I totally threw myself off. There was something important, went out of my head. Sorry. Moving on. Go ahead.
No, you've got covered, between the two of you, covered my questions.
Any other questions for the high school?
I came back, sorry. Love when I can look at my notes. Sorry, came back, I apologize.
I'm still up here while you came back. That's good.
No.
I have to come back up.
Sorry, it's good when I have notes written down. So communications, announcements, like, we've got to figure out, I mean, if we're talking about how to get a hold of people and being able to use those announcements and have them. Our website's a great tool, but we have to be able to like transpose what we're saying internally in the school, being able to post things,
Sure.
being able to actively utilize it, and for it to be historical. And I guess I just kind of look at some of what we're talking about throughout, you know, the communication. If we can't go back and I can't look historical, then what's kind of the point of it?
Yeah.
You know, it's only current until it's not. And if I can't get back to it, then I don't have a way of recalling. So I kind of feel like we've got to figure that out.
I'll share with you what the BAC is doing for announcements next year if you want.
That would be great.
So what we're doing a Google form collection for announcements. So then that way it is kind of archived somewhere. And then we're going to take that and we're going to translate it into 3 languages and we're going to publish it. So, and there's going to be a word count limit on the announcement.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
That's
I
what's
think
needed.
some good products that have come out of the work of the BAC that we just started this past year and trying to address some of the real operational issues that we have. And
What's BAC?
announcement, the Building Advisory Committee. So
Oh, right.
every
Got it.
school has a Building Advisory Committee that's made up of MEA members and leadership, and we attack problems related to curriculum, health, and services, and operations and management. So it's been a great experience this year. We've done a lot.
That's great. So when you say that those announcements are going to be published, do you mean on the website?
Yeah, well, we're looking at on the website. We might even be putting them up on the class Google websites because each class has their own Google website. But certainly getting them posted somewhere to start that process. And then if we are missing anywhere, then we can add other areas in to where they're posted.
Any other questions?
And my last was a positive, but also saying another idea. I love that you have Risha as a student representative on.
She's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
She's everywhere, which I love that she's everywhere. But if we want to extend and do more from an EL standpoint and bilingual, it seems like we've got to identify some other students that aren't necessarily always the ones that are out there to represent and pull them in so that we get their perspective. Because then we're going to have them help us to navigate where are those community places and what needs to be reached and why aren't we getting a hold of these families. So I would just strongly urge, and this really is for everyone, because that was the thing that I was missing. I didn't expect it so much to have a student involved at the elementary level, but I do at Whitcomb, and there's no student involvement at Whitcomb on here. So
Yeah,
kudos
I
to
know.
you on having that, yay.
Yeah.
But please push it out and get more because we want a diverse representation. We have to make that happen.
Oh, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
And I did notice in
Thanks.
the new crop of SATC, the Student Advisory Council's students that come and speak with us, there's a little bit more representation. in
And
this
there's 2
group.
freshmen.
Yeah,
And
2
two
freshmen.
freshmen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for next year. Yeah,
So we met with them
Yeah.
for a little training, so.
yeah,
it's
cool.
Great to see the new group. All young women, except Atul, of
Great.
course.
That's a lot of diversity, isn't it?
Well, they are
Any other questions?
culturally and ethnically
Oh, that's what we're
diverse.
talking about.
Yes. Well, we have
That's
Atul.
right. The old white guy's out.
Well, they need to step up.
Next school.
Thank you,
Who's got
guys. Thank you.
questions?
Thank you, Dr. Riley.
Thank you, Dr. Riley.
Mr. Riley works too.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
You can take the start this
Yeah, I
time.
say Hennessy goes first this
Yeah.
time.
Thanks, appreciate it.
No problem.
So, my first thing was, as you just heard,
Yep.
I really think that we've got to get students involved. If we want
Agreed.
to have a student perspective, and it needs to be the people that aren't necessarily the ones always raising their hands. So I would just request that somehow please work on getting some representation of different pockets of groups so that we can really get that.
Agreed on that. I have a teacher who wants to start kind of a peer mediation, a lot of different ideas. So I fully support that and agree with you.
Thank you. The other thing I would be really remiss if I didn't say something, Christine, is
Yep.
I'm very concerned that there weren't any meetings past December. So,
I agree.
I won't beat a dead horse, but that needs to change.
Absolutely. I'm already building the calendar for next year, and there will be meetings on that calendar. I take responsibility for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I would also ask at the same thing that the size of your school council, to me, needs to also enlarge. And, you know, I'm one voice, but I'm looking at it as one of our largest schools, and I've only got 2 educators involved on that. So I just, again, I would say, I think there needs to be go back and take a look at the representation, because the school council is really, you know, the backbone of making sure that we're meeting things. And at least for me, and everyone could be a little different, that to me, I appreciate these folks stepping up, but we need better representation if we want to make sure that we're addressing the needs.
Yep.
So, and it was a kind of across the board, not just a Whitcomb thing, but throughout a lot of the SIPs, I felt that putting 2023 to 2026 as the timeframe, to me, isn't really presenting enough structure of benchmarks in some cases, such as just examples, and Whitcomb is one of them, but there were other places throughout that I felt like when we're talking about PBIS and doing the tier 1, you know, getting people back on track as far as tier 1, and then another level of tier 2, and then another level of tier 3 discussion, yet everything is all within the 2023 to 26 timeframe. For me, that doesn't set a level of expectation of must meet to then must meet. You know, and I get that you're going to have some rolling that's moving on, but yet that to me is way too broad strokes, that we don't have a level of what are we aiming to achieve. And so that is like an overall comment to everyone. I feel like somewhere we've got to put some lines in the sand, because not putting lines in the sand allows us way too much room to not meet something. So.
Can I just, piggybacking on that specifically, to use an example, and I'm just,
that's
since
fine.
we're in this conversation, looking at the Whitcomb report, so schedule monthly attendance team meetings and reductions of absence rate, what's your goal? That's what I would have expected to see is, you know, achieve 5% reduction.
Right.
In that
Year-
first
in
year.
year one,
Year
and
one,
then
right,
bump
exactly,
it up.
because yes,
Understood.
we're all gonna be working on it every year, but more of setting that goal.
Okay.
So that achievement can be seen immediate, year 1, year 2, year 3. So I'm just using that as an example.
So, and you headed towards attendance, so that's another thing that for me, and it was not just at Whitcomb, it did hit at a number of the elementaries, and you kind of hit some rate at the high school as well. It was the talking about the schedule the monthly attendance team meetings to review student absenteeism. So my comment is, great to have the meetings, but if we really are having chronic absenteeism, I'm kind of thinking only doing it a month may not really be attacking it enough. And I just think that somewhere along the way, that's like where we've got to rely on whether it's the teams or, you know, we had a teacher, I remember pulling us aside when we were in the middle of some of the bus strike situation, and she was actually making a comment to us about the onus that she was taking upon herself to reach out to her families, let's say 30 kids that, you know, her families that were in her group, to find out, to make sure that there was that connection. And while I appreciate that we would have a consistency of a meeting on a certain time frame, if we're really going to nip it in the bud, we're going to need to nip it in the bud
From day
up
one.
front, quickly, right away. and that there's an understanding that you're here. And if you're not here, 3 or 4 days out of the first 2 weeks, there's a big issue, And I think that that's where, for me, I don't know, I kind of have to call that out, because if we're going to stop it, we got to stop it right up front. Yeah. You can come on up, too, if you really want to.
Will you ask me that question?
Okay, we'll do Rupal.
Rupal has a plan.
So, and then, I think it was about relative to the restorative justice, the trainings, and the interventions, and making the discipline happen. And again, it was so broad strokes, where I really want to see more levels of what we're hitting and more timeframes, so that we're actually reaching benchmarks, because I feel like we have
2026.
we can't wait till 2026. We're talking about PBIS and ROAR, and guess what? Whitcomb was the one that was doing it. So for me, better be able to bring it back a heck of a lot quicker than anybody else, when that was what the focus of that building was. And that was where it was being achieved, to then push into the high school to have them align to what was being done. So I guess that's where I'm looking for tighter information all around that stuff, so we can wrap our arms around getting it intact, quicker, better,
And
sooner.
it is happening, and there's a plan. I appreciate the feedback that perhaps those timelines were too long. As Dan said, we've met with the consultant. We are all in on the PBIS and rolling out the restorative justice, making that, I keep saying to staff, we're not going to be a restorative school if we don't use it consistently. So having that used consistently daily, what we're finding is an issue happens, and by the time the assistant principals get to have that circle, it's too late. We've missed our window of opportunity. So utilizing staff that are trained, having them sign up like, I'm available period 3, I'm available period 5. All right, great, we just had an issue. Mrs. Smith's available period 5. Mrs. Smith, would you mind doing a circle real quick? So utilizing more in the moment to help with those discipline issues. So we have plans, but again, I do appreciate the feedback that perhaps my timelines were too broad. I appreciate that.
Probably having some of those kind of details that you were just offering is helpful, so that we understand them, what's kind of being executed to get things like on track.
Okay, no excuses, I'm new to this.
But and I'll just interject that, this kind of, it kind of boils just down to communication, right?
Right.
Like these action plans are supposed to communicate to the world what we're doing, and it's just not enough information to really show what we're doing in real time.
Okay.
That's all.
Go ahead, somebody else can pick up.
Any other questions?
I guess the only thing I would add, I spoke to it about the high school, but the NWEA numbers are, yeah.
We've been experimenting with some different strategies for trying to get a little more student buy-in. The spring one kind of hit, it was sandwiched between MCAS, so not the best timing, but we've also been experimenting, historically we've done it like all in 1 week. Are we getting, are they tiring by the end of the week? So I think the spring one, we did it like every Wednesday for 3 weeks. So we're trying to experiment with a couple different methods of buy-in, but scores are
I
not
also suggest
reflected.
The Whitcomb also does the language assessment, which is
Yes.
different than the reading, which gives
Right.
you different data. But you're
Correct.
not including that in here. And I think it shows a different lens.
Okay.
So that might also, it might demonstrate what you're talking about, students buying into some assessments and not into others.
Correct.
Well, and around that, it kind of goes back to, when we changed the structure at the middle school, and went back towards overall support for ELA, knocking down some of the other courses, making sure there was more intervention, and that there was like, everyone for a while, it was the one book, and everybody was going to have that time where they were going to be reading, and it just feels like we've lost some of this impact. And I mean, again, I know we've had a pandemic, but like, we can't keep on leaning back on the pandemic. And, you know, so what did we learn that was beneficial from maybe having that reading, you know, drop everything and read? You know, which, you know, again, you know, what the mayor just said, I'm not an educator, but I'm
I
looking
know it
back.
worked for my kids, right?
And
Or-
so
Baseball bats.
Yeah.
it's just, it's evident that there is a big miss going on somewhere. Don't know, not my thing, but I can look at a graph and I can go, that's a big hole.
And I know it's not just Marlborough. I don't want Marlborough to think that it's just us, because it's not. But as Catherine just said, and as we said 2 weeks ago, COVID's here to stay. It's no more an excuse. It can't be. And we were starting to move in the right direction so well everywhere. You could see growth and things happening, and you know, it needs to go back to it, and it needs to
Get back on the
I do.
reset button.
Yeah, I think our score, our student achievement is higher than reflected in the scores. Unfortunately, those are the data points we have, so that's what we've got to work with. So I understand that.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Group gets to come up for everybody in elementary.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, somebody else gets to go first.
Did you not want to ask your question about the...
Sure, why don't we go back to
Let's start with that.
conversation? We can start
Yes,
with that.
yes.
Would you like to talk about that?
So I know...
Absenteeism
Yes, so I...
and meetings and things like that?
So I do know at the elementary level, we have something called cabinet meetings where the leadership team and relevant people come together every week to discuss students, absentee rates, other issues. And from that, you know, we are able to identify students who we consider chronically absent, so 10 days or more. That's where we're scheduling the meetings. So they're not actually monthly. They're happening with a school adjustment counselor, the teacher, and an administrator to talk to the parents and ask, how can we get your student in school? Because that's where they need to be. That is something that's, I know that it's happening at Goodnow. I know that it's happening at Kane and Richer. So that's something that we have talked about as 4 principals.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
And as it says, like 20, I know you were talking about 23 to 26, but it is ongoing. So maybe next, as we go through, that 5% becomes 8%, 9%, that kind of thing. So, and we put a year onto that, like, so.
I think that would be helpful. I think it just helps to give all of us the line in the sand of what we're trying to achieve. And then we have a benchmark to know, did we actually make it, or no, we didn't make it? And what were the ramifications of why, like, what led to not being able to make it, so that we understand, you know, where we are, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, I understood that a lot of these goals are ongoing goals, but having benchmarks for each individual year, that way you can say, well, how did we do reaching that? What were the pitfalls? What were the things maybe we did better than we anticipated?
And
what did
I-
we do, and how can we replicate that?
Yeah, I don't want to make an excuse for this 23 to 26 because you know what? It's really easy just to put that in there. But
Just want to
this
see
is
it drill down a little bit.
they're all brand new school improvement plans.
Yes.
And you know, we were kind of at the beginning of the year when we were talking about this, you know, this is a 3-year broad view. So at the end of next year, I think you can expect more of that January of 2025, this is going to be done.
Setting a target that's
Yeah,
exact.
so I think this is more of this is the beginning of a process. And to be honest with you, many of us, this is the beginning of a brand new process because,
Some of us are in their first year at our job.
well, yeah.
That too.
So, but I think all of the schools, right, like
Yeah.
at Richer, at Goodnow, we've never had to really write something in this format, in this way, and plan out for the next.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, but okay.
No. Well, yeah, well, but all right. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're trying to be overly critical of what
No.
you did with these documents. We're just kind of letting you know.
No, it's
what-
good feedback,
what
actually. That's, yeah.
information
So,
we really are trying to look at so that we can support you on making continuous improvements year in and year out. And in order to do that, you have to have tighter benchmarks, that's all.
In looking at, obviously, since we were looking at NWEA, I was quite happy to see most of the results. I mean, obviously, there's need for improvement in some areas, but I thought throughout the elementaries, it was, the results were very obvious at the first grade level what COVID did.
yes.
And that really, when we talk about parent and community involvement, and we're going to talk about it in the homework policy, what happened to kids, I hate to say this publicly, but what happened to parents reading to their kids or reading with their kids?
I don't know. I think this is a personal opinion, right? A very, very personal opinion. As we, and it struck me as a new administrator of small human beings. Books, this became the most important thing in a child's life. And I think what we really need to do is do a hard reset with the use of technology. And, we can read on our iPads, our Chromebooks, everything. But, when we've had conversations with parents, with students who are struggling behaviorally, the one thing that really hits them the most is the loss of an iPad. So that's something that's kind of out of our control, but we can do everything in our power as 4 elementary schools working on the same curriculum, working with the same scope and sequence, working with everything that we have to move our students forward.
No, I get that, and you're right. I mean, we all see it in children that, it's a lot easier to hand them the iPad or the tablet, whatever, to placate the situation. But you see the learning loss progression that's happened because of the inability to read and learn at the earlier ages. And I'm not calling anybody out for this, but only having 3 children tonight who read 1,000 books, where we've been averaging probably 7, 8, 9, one year I think we had 14, is just, I feel bad. I feel horrible because the opportunity's there for them.
Right, and I don't want to make an excuse either, but my children are not the same, my children as students are not the same students that we're seeing in our classrooms. So there is that piece of it, but like I said, working towards making sure they have the foundational skills, making sure that we are grouping according to skill and moving our students along is, I think, something that all 4 elementary schools, when we talk about that 60% growth and the inter-reading program and everything else, all 4 is that's the goal, right? So.
Right. No, and I appreciate that, thank you.
I'm going to say around books and like I love that you had said about your school climate, that you really wanted to, at JARC specifically, that was called out within your school, that you wanted to review ABAR-wise, you know, like making sure that you had appropriate texts and that things were in there to be able to support different cultures and things like that. You brought out about Portuguese and Spanish only bi-monthly meetings. Like, I just think that those are things that are great. Thank you for adding that in there. Thank you for bringing that level of detail and thought process about how we need to be reaching the diversity within our community. And I think that was really, to me, that was great to see. You mentioned also about the bilingual nights, you know, literacy nights, things like that, which there are at each of the different elementary schools, they did have certain nights, but I think that there are some things specifically where you were talking about a lot of recognition around the bilingual aspect, not only cultural diversity, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know, and I think approaching things in a little bit of a different way that I think is great, and I would love it for you to be able to share some of that insight and perspective with some of your peer administrators, because I think it's great, right,
Yeah.
to learn
No,
from each other.
Just honestly, working in the EL world and
Right.
not growing up speaking English, but you know, it's just we know that we have so many resources in our families at Jarek School, but we can't bring them because it's just trying to get them to know that they belong and they are their input and their contributions are valued. So
I have to say, to me, that rang very true in the plan that you all put together at JARC. I was able to see that.
and the PTO is trying so hard. That's why they want the Spanish or Portuguese only meetings, because when we have our events, there's so many people there. But when it's planning for the events or asking for their input, we don't have that kind of buy-in, you know? Everyone loves the block party. That thing is insane, you know? So, but
RJ didn't seem to enjoy it at all.
not at all. I don't know. Someone told me he brought his swim bag with him, so yeah.
And the other thing that I have to really give you compliments on was the idea around the restorative handbook for families. And,
It's already done. It's ready. We're actually, it was shared today, so again, that's something that I'm willing to share with the other elementary or other principals about what it is, why it's used.
Well, I love it, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to call it out, because I think it's something that should be pushed out across the district. I think it's a great idea, because if we want buy-in from the community and the families that we are doing this, we want you to engage with us. We need them to have the information so that they know what it is, right?
Of course. And when the kids come home and they're talking about what they did, or what they did in circle. I mean, we want our families to understand that so that they can support it or
And I think as
questions.
everyone's talked about, you know, our leadership meeting with PBIS and talking to, can I call her out by her name? Talking to Bethany about the PBIS system, and again, another piece of it is having something very similar for families to know what the Jarek core values are, what the expectations are, so that when they're not in Jarek, or they need to know what the bus expectations are, because those move with them into the bus or at the bus stop, or when they're in the community wearing their Jarek shirts.
Yeah.
So.
And help me, because I don't know this. harm healing circles.
Oh yeah, so we've actually had a few of those at Jarek, and we've had some when something is continuously happening with a student and it is impacting a larger community. It's a harm healing circle. So basically, we've had a few where we've had students, parents, teachers, and a protocol is followed, and then from that, kind of like an action plan is developed, so that everyone is aware that it's not just the two students who are impacted. You know, a teacher can say, like, when this happens in my classroom, you take away from my instructional time, you take my attention from the entire class. So it's harming me and our community. So that is something that's happened a lot at Jarek, actually. I'm proud to say that. So
Thank you for the insight. I appreciate it.
Again,
I have a question about the panorama surveys. Can you
all right.
educate me on what they
So,
are? I mean,
that's for the school climate and culture. So students in grades 3 through 5 answer a set of questions regarding relationships, you know, their safety in the school. It kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with the Safe and Supportive Schools initiative. And staff are asked questions about relationships with colleagues, relationships with students, student-staff, student to student, and then leadership. So it's giving an insight for me as I go through to see if some of the things that we're doing are working. And then we go over it with the staff as a group. Like, I know that we did it in a faculty meeting, and then I did it with the paras as well, to talk about how we can move the school climate and culture forward. Excellent. Is that right?
and I have one question, and I don't want to just address it to you, Ripple, but, and maybe Mary, you can add to it. Because it's district-wide under the PBIS, but how are we determining major and minor? And obviously, they're different at each level, I assume. And I guess, and the appropriate action, reaction, and consistency and enforcement. I mean, those are I think the biggest things that we heard the last couple of months was just this willy-nilly here, and this one was done here. And I'm not, pointing at anybody, but again, if we aren't consistent throughout, if we don't set the expectations, as you said, and what the results carry.
I think the major and the minor definitions are consistent, like K through 12. I don't know about preschool, I can't say. But, so what constitutes a minor is the same at the elementary as the high school. What constitutes a major is, and I think they're tied to school committee, like policies, things, other things, but the language is the same. How it is dealt with or sometimes reported at the elementary level is not as consistent because it doesn't go through the same process. That's an honest answer.
And I appreciate that. I think it's just, obviously you and your peers have to determine that the consistency.
Yeah, and we've had conversation. Mary has started that, believe me. So
we talked about, for years we've talked about the consistency of the education, that you shouldn't be able to identify a child that came out of X school when they hit Whitcomb. So
Were you in the room with us last week?
No.
So no, we have actually started those conversations, and we as principals said that we want the assistant principals and ETLs in the room as well, because as building administrators, they are looking at that.
Eyes and ears.
Right, and not just, primary to secondary, but I guess there has to be consistency because we do have students that move from school to school to school, K through 5, right? And in terms of the academic consistency, we're really starting to fire on all cylinders, but now I truly understand why we need the social emotional and the majors and minors, and everyone needs to be on the same page.
And I think I mentioned last time, one of the things, when we talk about majors and minors, we also talk about classifications as we're creating data. And if our data isn't consistent, then it doesn't mean anything. So as mentioned earlier, Whitcomb School led the way, and one of the first documents that they created was the understanding of what a major and minor was and what it looked like and scenarios for each of them. The elementaries did that as well. We have pulled all those resources. They need another lens and look through, but making sure that they're consistent across. Also, for PBIS, all the schools are talking about core values and what that looks like in the expectations for their buildings. So we've also been starting to talk about what the consistency of those are as well. Respect and responsibility are two core values that are quoted in every single school across this district. So just knowing that and talking about that and what that looks like is also a foundational piece for us.
And just in talking to the consultant, having those core values, setting those expectations, having lessons that are created and incorporated into our community circles, especially at Jarrick, but it gives students a way of knowing how to avoid getting that minor or major, right? So
It's setting the expectations, and you want to be looking at those same core values and expectations being taught at every level and moving up as they developmentally can,
And I think that's why it was so great to have everyone in the room
Yeah.
and everyone sharing what happens at the high school, what happens at Whitcomb, what happens at the elementary schools, what happens here at ECC. We want the expectations for a Marlborough student. So.
Right. And not to take away, each elementary's kind of personality. You can call it something
Oh, we do.
different, right?
There's
in
koalas
each
and
school.
eucalyptus
Right,
leaves and
Exactly. But
there's jaguars and spots happening. We don't know what's going on now. So yeah. So yeah.
But they're all based in the same foundational
They are.
concepts.
Right.
The old gold star method, right?
We might have gold stars
Anything
too.
else?
I'm good. Thank
Good?
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes for June 13th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Public participation. Any public participation? Public participation. Seeing none. Boys and Girls Club before and after school.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In front of the school committee tonight is a request to award the Boys and Girls Club with a new 5-year agreement. Some background, in FY20, the city and the school department awarded a 5-year contract to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro West to run before and after school childcare programs in the Marlborough Public Schools. Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, which sets the standards for public procurement, allows for an agreement between a municipal government and a local nonprofit that serves the public purpose of support to be excluded from Chapter 30B procurement. Within the current 5-year agreement is a provision that allows the school committee to extend the agreement under this Chapter 30B exclusion. Status, in partnership with the city, administration is proposing a new 5-year agreement from FY25 through FY29 with the Boys and Girls Club that would extend the existing agreement at the current rates plus a 2.5% increase annually, and would also add up to 250 childcare spots for Marlborough families at the Pleasant Street Clubhouse at no cost to those Marlborough families. This agreement would maintain and/or create affordable or no-cost childcare options for Marlborough families. Again, the recommendation is to award this new 5-year agreement to the Boys and Girls Clubs. Happy to
Entertain
answer
a
questions.
motion.
So moved. Motion to approve the Boys and
Motion made and
Girls.
seconded to approve. Discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
No, I just want to say, thank you for your work on this, because I know it was not an easy thing. The Boys and Girls Club have been, but have also become a major part of our community. And that the securing of those additional spots for the kids is really critical. So,
I think it's a big win for the community.
Thank you.
It's good. Thank you. It's a good agreement.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Resolution on the school bus safety.
Oh, that's me. Sorry, and I wasn't here last meeting, I apologize. So, I had presented for your consideration a resolution that was put together by the Peabody School Committee as a resolution to the Delegate Assembly at MASC in November regarding bus safety, specifically around an idea which actually there are currently 3 or 4 different bills at the State House on this exact issue. So it is not just something that Peabody came up with, but it's regarding the ability for districts to put cameras on school buses to identify cars that don't stop when a school bus is stopped and flashing lights. We know it happens in every community, and it's terrifying for me when I see it happen, but people going around buses. And there's, you're not allowed to do it right now. And so this is looking to pass some sort of ordinance that allows, it doesn't force anyone, any district can choose to do it or not. This is not a unfunded mandate in any way. It just allows, well, who knows, but, it allows districts, should they want to pursue this, the ability to pursue it.
Well, I'll entertain a motion first, and then we can talk about it.
motion to approve the.
Motion made and seconded to approve.
Oh, let me just clarify. What I am asking is for the Marlborough School Committee to co-sponsor this along with the Peabody School Committee to become a resolution before the larger MASC body. That's what the request is.
On the resolution, any discussion? So my only concerns are, one, anyone can do this today that wants to do it, if they want to pay a little bit more for their bus contract and put the cameras on, or put the bars on, or have more police presence out there. They have the ability to do it if they want to spend some more money. So I'm not sure where we're going with this, other than to get more communities involved, so it is a mandate, and we're all required to do it.
I guess my understanding, and maybe Michelle, because you were part of that conversation, and maybe Doug might know the answer too, is that the digital video violation detective monitoring system doesn't allow currently for bus drivers to report it or school districts to report it that easily. So I think this allows it.
The way it is now, that the offender only gets
Has to be
ticketed if
witnessed. Right.
Right, it has to be witnessed by a police
You can use
officer.
that to give them
Right, but we went through this with the red lights and the cameras at the red lights, where They've been found to be challenged, and communities are losing left and right because they're issuing tickets because of a camera.
The rest of the world, it works.
I'm just saying, anything we can do to make the kids safer is a great idea. But I think it's just creating another feel-good mandate that we really can't enforce in the long run. But, go ahead.
I think at least at this point, I hear what you're saying. I think this is just saying, at minimum, do we feel strongly that there needs to be something more with teeth to put forward? So all we're saying at this is, yes, Peabody will sign on to this, to then put it in front of MASC to try and get the organization behind getting some kind of notice around this. So I hear where you're going. I guess I'm going to say anything that's going to try and help to save a kid's life, I'm all for, so sign me up, right? And where does it go from there? We'll see.
We're not even willing to spend the extra money for seatbelts, so.
Nobody has, though. I mean, we
Same
only have
thing.
it on the small ones, yeah.
Well, I'm up for a change and try, so.
Any further discussion?
We have a motion, right? Yes.
Yep. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Policy 7.700.
I know you all have been waiting so much for this. Okay, so here we are. So policy, we had a meeting on June 15th. Our lovely subcommittee, Mr. Geary, Mr. Caruso, myself had a meeting with our administration, and we had a number of parents that did come. I do want to thank not only the parents that were able to attend, but we have had some dialogue with other parents that have reached out off and on over a number of months, if not the full year, for different changes, revisions, collaboration, all of that. So the policy that you have before you tonight, I would ask for a suspension of the rules so we could actually take up a vote. And the reason being is we'd like to be able to get to a policy that we are happy with around the table, so that if we can approve something, it allows administration to have something that then goes on to the books, and administration can work with all of the building administration on pushing it out to the staff and then to all of the families. So we're not waiting until we get closer to school. So one of the things that we found through our discussions is communication is really key. We've had that conversation around the table a lot tonight, haven't we? So we really need to push this out, because I know you all might be surprised, but there has been a homework policy in place saying that homework is allowed.
Really?
I know.
Shocking.
And we have actually had that across the district for a while now. It's not just happened just within the last year. So I just wanted to make sure that y'all know that. And we just think that we need to go ahead and make sure that there's a policy in place. So we had the revised policy that was in your packet. And then Mr. Caruso did reach out to me late last night with some comments and or suggestions or different thoughts that we had not had prior to that revision. And the item that I gave you tonight that was printed out, that I gave you, right? And you can see it, okay? There are cross marks on a few places and there are some red. Those are actually Mr. Caruso's comments.
I knew I couldn't out-prepare you. I don't know why I tried.
Sorry, that's my job. So I took what you would have already had in your packet and I made the revisions, suggestions that Mr. Caruso had sent me after I had reviewed them. And I personally, after all of the discussion, really felt like what he was offering up made sense. There weren't really, I didn't see any issues to it. And so I felt like it would be a heck of a lot easier to have in front of you to review these potential amendments, since you would have reviewed most of it already in your packet, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes to quickly read over it, okay? So everyone take a little moment and take a look.
Entertain a motion to suspend the rules, take this up and vote on
Motion
it
to
tonight.
suspend the rules to vote.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question while you're reading? Because I'm sure it was discussed and I'm sure there's an answer for it. But we hear about the disconnect between the schools and the parents, and the fact that the majority of our students, the parents aren't, and I could probably say the majority of our students, the parents aren't quite involved as they maybe should be or could be. And the second paragraph says, in partnership with the schools, it's expected that the families will provide their child with materials for appropriate grade level literacy and mathematic activities. So how can we, it seems like it's kind of how are we gonna get the parents to jump on board our second paragraph?
So I'll take this, and anybody else, feel free to jump in here. It's our hope, and I would think pretty much our collective hope, I'm going to say, I'm thinking for everybody in this room, that our hope is that as a parent or a guardian of a child, you want your child to be doing stuff to help their education. Doing stuff meaning math facts or reading a book. And we're hoping that you're helping them to do that consistently. I'm going to say, in my mind, daily. It could be having conversations with them so that you're helping them to learn something. It could be sitting there with a flashcard on the side of the softball field when they are not playing and they're not watching their kid sister. Is that going to happen everywhere? No, it's not. But we can certainly put it out there to try. There are community service groups, one that I may know of, near and dear, where they are community service groups that have helped to give packets of books in bilingual versions of text to try and support families so that they can take things home. So there are opportunities. Do we think that this is definitely going to happen? No, but we are trying to offer up that in partnership, there are opportunities that can be had.
Entertain a motion to approve the policy.
So we can have a discussion.
I will make a motion to approve the policy as
Motion made and
amended.
seconded to approve policy 7.700, homework. Discussion.
Thank you. So this is kind of regarding the amendments. So in the first, by saying unfinished classwork, I'm just hearkening back to like back in the days, and I know I'm probably a dinosaur, when my kids, like in elementary school, would bring a packet home in the beginning of the week with enrichment activities that were supportive of what they learned in the classroom during that week that they could do at home. It wasn't unfinished classwork. It was above and beyond the classroom work. But
So I
think
hear you.
that-
I'm going to let Mr. Caruso answer that one because he added that one on in there, not me.
Well, a lot of our discussion was around that entire issue of what is and what isn't homework. But the reason I put the word unfinished there was actually something different. I didn't want to give anybody, I'm being very careful here because I have friends in the education field as well as parents, that I didn't want to give anybody the impression that a teacher was going to be able to just give the child the day's assignment to do at home, so sort of not have to do it during the day. In other words, here's the assignment we're doing today, take it home and do it. I just wanted to make sure it was understood that what was going home, in this particular case, because we were very specific, was unfinished classwork, okay? And it doesn't mean that's the only thing it's gonna necessarily have to be homework either. It was just, we were trying to put up options, I think, what homework could be. And one of them was the unfinished classwork.
So,
But
yeah.
isn't this going back to the same discussion we've been hearing for the last 3 years, that we don't assign homework? We have them finish up the stuff that's left over during the day.
I think there's a difference between the packet, and I know that Ms. Barry's not here today, but often, like routinely, if you go into her room on Monday morning, you will see the packets that she sends home, and a number of teachers still do that. And the difference between what Mr. Caruso was talking about, it's not intended that we're falling behind, so please do these assignments at home so that, because I'm a day behind the pace. We don't want students to independently be instructing themselves. It's,
Right, I mean,
yes,
but I think
yeah.
that has always
Yeah.
been
Yeah, it
part
was-
of the policy.
Yeah.
That homework is never
Yeah.
the first time that a student is learning
Right,
material.
right.
I mean, I think ad nauseum, I feel like we've said that.
Yeah.
In every single iteration of the homework policy for the 18 years that I've been in this seat. I mean, I don't know how many more ways we can make that point clear, but I just, I guess I don't see Miss Berry's packet in that first paragraph. When I'm reading it, I only see.
Can I ask a
down.
question?
Okay, all right.
Do you want them to be able to have to put a packet in to take home? 'Cause
No.
We're trying to give them the option of, that's one of the things you can do.
Of
But
course.
I think if we have, it's the issue we had when we were talking to parents. It's how to decide what the wording is that lets them know they can assign homework, but they don't have to unless there's the teacher finds a reason for it. Okay? And this is just one of the reasons we put there.
Okay.
Ms. Matthews?
I just think the word unfinished narrows what a teacher may interpret as that's the only thing.
So.
And that frightens me because it goes back to we never said no homework.
But
And-
I guess I'm still a little confused why we're not asking them to give us the policy, and we'll just approve it. They should be telling us what we should be doing for homework,
The major.
not us telling them.
But you won't get them to agree either on what that should be completely either.
major issue
Then
with
she
homework
needs to lead the crew and say, we're gonna agree on this, let's figure this out.
You mean they, meaning the teachers?
Yeah, the teachers and the administrators should be
Yeah.
telling us what the policy should be, and we should be approving it.
So we actually, with the base, not Mr. Caruso's changes, but this revised policy did get sent after we had come up with it in this meeting on the 15th, did get sent in front of building administrators as well as the heads of the MEA, so that they could see, and we received some feedback, which we took into account to get to what you have in front of you, minus the changes that Mr. Caruso has added in here. Okay, so, but the base of this policy, most of it was seen by the head of MEA and the building administrators. We got some minor tweaks, which we addressed, and is here. Okay?
We're always trying
So
to say.
the major problem here with the homework policy, and it has been, it's not that we are saying that there's no homework. We've never said there's no homework, but somehow that gets, I don't know what the word translated or trickles down, and there are actually people that work for us that say, oh, there's a policy of no homework. So we need to make sure that this is worded such that there's no way to say, I thought the last one was that way. But there's no, but apparently it's not, so it goes down to communication as part of it, but this does address some other
Why can't
concerns,
we
but
just
it's,
say homework can be assigned as needed by the teacher ought to.
We have
appropriate
said, we've always said.
Period. One sentence.
It was,
and
they kept saying it says no homework. So I do need to go out on a limb here, though. Mr. Caruso, I don't necessarily support the unfinished classwork. To me, I think it just needs to stay as classwork, because I do feel like it invites potential confusion. So that's just me personally, that I put this in here so that we could have something, but I did want to say, for me, I would prefer to just keep it as classwork, not unfinished classwork, because I just feels like it gives one more opportunity of confusion.
Okay.
So.
2 points, and I'm not going to live and die on the word unfinished, believe me. 2 points. One is, again, I was looking at that from another angle. I didn't want not that they would, because we have very dedicated educators, like I was, just to get that point out there. But I don't want anyone to say, I'm not feeling like it today, so here's the classwork we're gonna do, take it home and do it. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to.
But to that point also is, we also don't, if we say that part of it, where you're trying to prevent instructed work that should have been reviewed, we also don't want the busy work, just for the sake of busy work, right? We want reinforcement of instruction, but, so, if we start to get into adjectives, we're narrowing the scope. We just give homework if you feel you need to give homework.
And the other, like I said, I'm not going to live and die on the word unfinished, believe me. The other thing, and the last thing I want to do is confuse anybody any more than we've already been the last year. The other point I wanted to make was to Mrs. Von Hettinger's point, is if you look down at the bullet points, that gives all kinds of different examples that allows for packets and, it's all there. It says you can do these things. We just, that's sort of the opening sort of statement of what we think homework is for.
So then, I
least I think.
personally don't support the word unfinished.
And I said I'm not going to keep us till midnight to fight for the word
Next
unfinished.
amendment.
The next amendment is with the next paragraph, I actually like materials and support. And because my concern is this makes it look like parents are responsible for like going to the store and buying materials for their students. And knowing our population, that's,
And honestly, that
putting
was the
people
discussion
in
we had around the table, was that materials and support, because there's gonna be some stuff that's gonna need to come from stuff from the school to help it happen. So,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, if we're having a difficult time engaging families in just supporting their student in their homework, it's pretty far stretched that they're all going to be out there getting materials. Dr. Riley?
Sure,
Absolutely.
please.
Thank you. One thing that I remember when we started talking about this policy is.
You mean 3 or 4 years ago?
10, 12, 15 years ago.
I had mentioned at the time, the Superintendent Bergeron, I had said, when you try to capture instructional practice, good instructional practice, in a policy, you go down a rabbit hole of wordsmithing, because it's very hard to do. Going out on a limb here, what stands out to me with having a policy about homework is we don't have policies around other facets. We don't have policies around instruction. We don't have policies around assessment, but we have policy around homework. So for me, it stands out. In what you guys are going through now, you're probably going to continue to go through, because good instructional practice, it evolves day to day. It's hard to capture. And that's all I wanted to share while you guys are struggling with this. So, thank you.
You're incredibly correct, and that's been one of the issues around this, that we have had multiple discussions.
Absolutely.
In multiple formats, multiple places, that homework has been in existence, with exception of when Desi said during COVID, for a very specific time period, that it wasn't then.
Yeah.
Other than that, homework has always been around and always been available to support our staff and students and families as it was needed, period.
Sure. It's good instruction, good instructional practice.
A good teacher is gonna figure out how much homework they give out.
Amen, absolutely.
Can I just add this one thing? The problem that we're having, though, or the policy committee having to discuss this, is not just that the teacher is assigning, it's that there are expectations by parents that some want more than others, and I get that part of it. But, and we obviously had the misunderstanding that everybody still thinks none. We can't, yeah, as Dr. Riley just said, we can't, I've seen other districts who say, this grade has to have 15 minutes, and then this grade has to, that's busy work. That's not adding and helping. You know, yes, I'd love to see every kid having to read a book every single day, you know, a paragraph, a page, or whatever, a chapter. But it's the parents understanding that they might not get an hour of homework every single day, but they're working diligently in the classroom too.
But isn't it the principal's responsibility, if they have a teacher whose class is underperforming, and then when they have a sit-down with them, they never assign any homework, it reflects on the teacher and the performance.
Well,
And
that and the
vice versa,
attendance,
when you
right,
have
and the
someone,
attendance and other
you
things that
get that-
factor into it, yes.
that pain in the neck teacher I had in the 8th grade that every night gave you an hour, it's like, I want them out, you know, but it's just, I think it's their responsibility to manage their teachers and do this. I just think they know it better than we do as elected officials, that's all. I mean, I know there was input from some, but, you know, we have 800 employees, we have 450 educators that I think, you know, sometimes I think we try to tell them how to do their job when they're the educators. If they're not doing their job, we need to find new educators.
So on the policy,
Yeah, we're not touching that
so
one.
on the policy, I'm going to go in the first paragraph. I'm going to ask straight out, how are we on that first paragraph, folks?
No on unfinished. I'm going to make a motion for no on the unfinished.
Withdraw unfinished.
Okay. Okay, so it
Finished
seems
is-
like,
unfinished
we've
is
got an
finished.
agreement there, so I'm going to nix that amendment, folks, okay? Let's look at paragraph 2. Okay, so paragraph 2, we just already heard that materials and support were critical for some over here. Yes, Mr. Crusoe.
Let me make a point. The only thing I did there was play English teacher and rearrange the words. I really didn't change the sentiment. Well, you may think I did, but I really didn't try to change anything. I just tried to make it sound better to my ear. So that's all I was trying to do. So again, I'm not really, you know, that wasn't a philosophical thing. It was just my original major years ago when I first went to college was English, and I still have a little bit of that in me. That's all it was.
What's the pleasure? What's the thoughts? You leaving it or are we amending
I mean,
it?
I
like
see
the way it
what
was
you
worded.
mean, and I understand in terms of I'm not an English teacher, obviously, but by leaving materials hanging out there by itself, to me, that's what I focused on. Parents are responsible for providing materials for their children, and I don't think that's what we're trying to say.
Any other thoughts?
I'm of that
I'm with
same frame of mind, so I would prefer not changing it all around.
You put it back the way it was, fine. Like I said,
Good.
it just reads weird to me. I'm sorry. It still will read weird to me, but as long as everybody else is willing to.
Your math. Come on, English people.
No.
Don't touch the homework
Don't touch
policy.
the homework
You may
policy.
not want your fingerprints on it at all. You may not want
You
to.
like it the original way?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
In partnership with the schools.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. In partnership with the schools, it is expected that families will provide materials and support their students
I think I added that there.
Appropriate grade level literacy and mathematics activities outside of the school day to aid in academic growth of their child student.
Are we only doing literacy and mathematics?
What? Wait, what?
What, only math and reading?
Literacy allowed
Was
for
encompassing everything.
reading and writing
Appropriate grade level literacy and math.
and mathematics. So it's the word literacy we were utilizing to accomplish reading,
Humanities.
writing, and mathematics. So that's what we were going for.
So what we are doing here is exactly what I thought we should be doing, which is give it to them, have them write the policy and give it to us.
Okay.
They're not writing it, they're reading it.
did
They did.
They
And
already got
obviously,
it.
they
Maybe
did
didn't
have a lot of
read
other
it.
things going on their plate, and so we did get some responses, and we moved forward with those responses.
Right.
When I read it, there wasn't this level of discussion and
Right.
materials and support. So
Right.
that was-
Exactly. So think on that second paragraph, folks. We're going to move forward so we can try and get through this, okay? Let's look at that third paragraph, please. MPS believes that work beyond the school day can support classroom lessons and may be necessary to complete and achieve mastery of and enrichment for the curriculum.
I'll make a motion. I actually kind of like that change.
Perfect.
That's
Great. Okay, so we're all,
That was my
we're all
language arts
feeling good
again.
there. Okay, great. Now, let's look at bullets, okay, shall we? First bullet, homework may be assigned on a regular basis. Do I have thumbs up? Okay, great, thumbs up, thanks. Okay.
Are we IBB?
Homework assignments will be related to learning targets and reinforce classroom instruction and will not be used to teach new learning content. Excellent, love those thumbs up, thank you. Projects, reports, essays, readings, or other long-term assignments may be partially or fully completed at home. These assignments should not entirely encompass a holiday or school vacation. Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. We are moving right along here. Next, teachers will ensure that students understand the purpose of the assignment and can complete the work independently. Excellent. Students are expected to complete all homework assignments in a timely manner and will receive credit as classwork, never as a separate grading category.
And the rest is as presented.
Almost, hold on. Parents, guardian are encouraged, if needed, to seek out enrichment activities for their students.
Put a period there, too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that one. I wasn't a
Okay.
grammar-
And
grammarian.
as the mayor was saying, the last two paragraphs as is. Okay, are we at least around the table at the moment feeling pretty good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
We just
so
need
Peanut Gallery, would you like to hop up?
Do we have to hop on?
Come to the mic because you have to come here because,
The amended one.
Either or. What do they like?
Another comment.
Okay.
Oh, push, wrong button. My question, when I was just sitting next to Rupal, was that second paragraph. Nowhere in there does it say that you're providing the students with materials and support for homework. So I think I'm not sure if,
this isn't about homework.
so what we're saying in the homework policy is that a parent should be providing,
So the idea
materials?
was that
I just want-
every time we've talked about homework, especially at the elementaries, but we've said we still expect students to be reading at home every day and practicing their math facts,
why
right?
don't we just
Or
say that?
writing, right? And necessarily, that could be outside of homework. That's still a common expectation in the Marlborough Public Schools.
And I guess our question is, are the families providing that material or?
Right.
I'm gonna get yelled at in a minute
Right.
if you don't use a microphone. I'm sorry.
come join me, since we had a similar question.
Join, you can,
Sure. We had
you
the
can
same
take the
idea.
meeting over if
I
you
guess
want.
we'll stand together. I don't know. Okay.
Control.
Arthur's on a roll here today.
Happy last meeting day.
So
So that's why it was saying in partnership with the schools, because in some cases, some families may be able to provide their own items. And in other cases, items may need to come from the schools. Sometimes it might be from the library. Sometimes it might be because people have created their own little math facts and they cut out their own little pieces of paper, flashcards, whatever. So that's why it's in partnership with, right? So it's not a must, it's that they might work with them.
Any ideas?
Oh, it sounds like I'm buying poster boards and colored pencils for my. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
Which way?
The
Both.
either like providing materials and support, or students with materials appropriate for grade level literacy and mathematics activities. When I see materials, I'm like,
Provide, I feel like that word provide needs to change. It's the provide that's
I,
wrong.
I don't know. I just thought I'm buying poster boards and markers.
How about,
If we just lose materials.
wait, wait. I had a thought in my head. In partnership with the schools, as
See how much
expected-
fun it's really been over the years? I'm just gonna ask.
I wait to
That
see your email when
families-
this is all done tonight.
will support the appropriate grade level literacy and mathematics activities for academic growth of their child.
Yeah, get rid of that.
Yeah.
Materials.
Yes.
And
Yes.
provide materials.
Provide materials, strike it.
Yes.
Someone write that down.
Can you play that back?
Say that again?
In partnership with the
In
school,
partnership with the schools,
it
it is expected that
families
families
will support
their child, students, appropriate grade level literacy
and mathematics
activities
activities
that support
that
their
support their
academic
academic
growth.
growth.
Right,
Yeah.
because that encompasses math facts and reading, and it doesn't say you have to go to the
Twice. Just
store and
take
buy
this
books.
paragraph and strike,
markers.
provide
Or
materials.
markers.
Everyone okay with that paragraph?
Yeah.
Off of this
Yeah.
space, off of this space.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait, because
I mean, because we,
Yeah.
There's more.
more.
There's
There's
more.
this unfinished classwork thing that everyone was.
We wanted to, we nixed unfinished.
we nixed unfinished.
You're nixing it? Because
Yes.
you're actually just repeating that in that MPS believes that work beyond the school day can support classroom lessons and may be necessary to complete and achieve math.
Correct.
That, you just don't even need that top part, but that's, sorry.
So everyone's good with the paragraph?
No, I
In
get-
partnership with the schools.
Wait a minute, we
You'll
have someone
type it up.
chiming in from the high school.
I just
It's
want
a
to,
different set of,
I just want to throw one more plug out there for, it's super hard to have a policy about instructional practice. What I've dealt with in my building, and I'll just share this openly since we're having this discussion, is the staff are not very receptive to the policies that are dictating their practice in the classroom. And it's not because it's not all well-written and it's not all well-intended. I think it's because they're interpreting this, trying to capture what they do and how they do it as that they're either not doing it or that they haven't figured it out yet. And so they read a policy like this and they push back naturally. And they try to find holes and say, well, that's not there, or that's not there. So again, you open this up to us, and I apologize for, going out on a limb here. I think, but I did share this 4 years ago that I think it's a tricky line to walk when you're trying to craft a policy that staff are supposed to use as practice, when those are the professionals that we're hiring that are allegedly already well versed in these practices in order to help us cover the whole scope and sequence of what the school year should cover. And I think, as Mayor Vigil pointed out, if that's not happening, then we get feedback as principals. I certainly know that there are times in the past when I've gotten feedback from parents that have said, my son or daughter has been in this class for weeks and they haven't brought one thing home. What's going on? And that prompts a conversation with an educator about how's the class being structured? Should there be more that's happening? Are you going to get through everything if you're not expanding upon the school day? So just one more plug if you don't mind, and I appreciate the opportunity to say it.
I have a question
Yeah.
for you regarding that.
Mr. Gary,
So
yeah.
I get what you're saying, and we were trying to, when we were going through this ad nauseum, we were trying not to tell the teachers how to
Sure.
teach in class. 'cause
Yeah, I
we're-
can tell you guys
that's
have put a
their
lot of
job.
thought into that. Yep.
But what are we to do as the governing body
Yeah.
when a teacher,
That
multiple.
may or
multiple-
may not work at the high school or in an elementary
Well,
school or at
it's-
Wickham.
We're not talking about one person. So if a teacher
Yeah.
says to a parent, because the parent says, you know, we're not getting any homework, what's the deal? First thing they do is they talk with the teacher, right? They don't go right to you.
No,
They
yeah,
go to the
sure.
teacher.
Some of them come right to
And
me,
the
but-
teacher says, we're not allowed to give out homework. When did it ever say that?
Yeah.
It never said that.
And
It was,
And
and
it
I
still
think,
happens. So from us, as a governing body, we expect, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, no,
We
it's
expect the
okay.
building administrators to have policed that.
Yeah.
And if they're getting that feedback, something should be done
yeah.
with that person. Well, it hasn't happened. So, I mean, it happened, the only time it was not doing homework was during COVID.
Yeah.
Before that, there was homework. After that, it's been homework, but.
Yeah.
And I get it. I had kids in the school, and sometimes I'm like, how come you're not getting, how much homework are you getting? You know, but they would do it in class or whatever, you know, they did have some homework.
Yeah.
So I get that there's some interpretation there, but it has to stop. You can't have, teachers can't tell parents stuff that isn't true.
Yeah, but it's like any other employee we have. When they go and tell the public or someone else something that isn't true, it's up to their supervisor to deal with it.
Absolutely.
So if the principals aren't dealing with it, it's a different issue than not having a policy. It's up to the principals to deal with the teacher that's not
So I
there's a
totally agree with you.
miscommunication somewhere.
don't
We've talked
disagree on
about
this.
it.
It's supposed to give them the tools to do
This is
that.
so damn gray, they can basically tell their teachers anything they want. But I just,
gray.
I,
Except for there is homework.
Yeah, like, as far as I'm concerned, what the policy is telling teachers,
Yeah.
you should be doing homework, and it's telling everybody else, this is what homework could look like.
Sure. Yeah. And
I
I
don't
think,
think the intent is to tell teachers how to do their job, other than you can give homework, and you probably should.
well, I think with the first, as we've been evolving this policy, I think, as Mr. Gary pointed out, when teachers received the last homework policy, they started broadcasting, there's a no homework policy. And we as building leaders spent multiple faculty meetings, department conversations, holding up even the former policy and saying to folks, this does not say no homework. The issue that I was observing in my building was the cultural pushback on trying to define the rules of the game, if you will, on being successful as a teacher. And we had to work through that as a staff. And we had to discuss dozens of scenarios in which, you know, even the other policy did support work going home. But I think that the cultural piece of it with the profession is what we encountered. And so I do completely understand that. I think that that this publication is meant to dispel any of the false rumors that came out of the former publication. So I do understand that completely, and I will speak for my colleagues and say that as building leaders, we will continue to support the message that you're all delivering to us with respect to the expectations of the school. What's important to us is that we are meeting the benchmarks, the academic benchmarks. We understand as teachers, right, that we are not going to meet those benchmarks if there isn't great teaching happening in our classrooms. And there's multiple facets of great teaching. There's great instruction. And if there's great instruction happening in the classroom next to another classroom, then that classroom might need less homework than the classroom that doesn't have such great instruction. And if there's amazing variation of assessments happening in the classroom down the hallway, then they might get to the heart of the matter of student learning a little bit faster than another classroom that doesn't have those variation of assessments. So, and again, that was my point, that when you try to capture great instructional practice, it's probably next to impossible, which is why you could probably find 50 different books written on the same instructional methods, because everybody has their own angle at how to get to the heart of the matter, right? So,
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly why we're trying to work with all of the different parties, get something in place, get something voted on, so that the communication to push it out again
is cleared up. Yep.
is very clear.
I got you.
Right?
Yep.
And if we do it now, it gives a number of months before school starts to be able to, again, reinforce with our administration the expectations, so that you can then reinforce with your staff expectations once again, that there's not really anything that's changed. We're just trying to make it clearer so that you guys have something in hand to walk forward with, to once again say, so that we don't hear that on curriculum night, someone stands in front of us and says, oh, but there's no homework policy.
Sure, yeah.
Because
Or
it
we're not
has
allowed.
happened in the past.
Oh, I know, yeah, and we've
and I
all
think
addressed
that-
it in our buildings that.
And I know you have. I
Yeah.
mean, but I think that that's what we're all trying to help to dissuade, is to, again, get it out. Let's start fresh. Let's have a restart by, here's the policy, here are the expectations. I'm not going to tell you what to come do in your classroom. You may need some homework.
Can I throw out one thing? I don't know if it helps or hurts. I'm actually going to ask about an amendment here, not throwing the whole thing out, which I would prefer. But, on the third paragraph, if we start that with, based on the educators'
Practices?
at the educator's discretion, MPS believes that work beyond, if we start it with, at the educator's discretion, don't say teachers, don't say
at the
principals,
educators.
the educator's discretion, because they're all educators. Does that help or hurt or screw it up more?
I like that wording.
Mr. Cruz is going to come out of the seat in a second.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I tried to address that in the first bullet. Originally, I wanted to say homework may or may not be assigned on a regular basis. Like you said, according to the, I said teachers at the time, we can change, according to the teachers, whatever. But basically what you're trying to say, I wanted to put that there, but I was kind of,
I think that putting that language in there is kind of like the other one he was just mentioning, is it gives them the out. I don't have to give homework. We don't want that in there.
Yeah, but this whole
Homework's
thing
part of,
gives them an
homework's part of
out.
the, what's that?
The whole policy gives them an out if they,
No, it does not.
huh?
There's
Well,
nowhere in this policy that you can construe that you don't have to give homework. Like,
in the
I'm not
last one,
that you're not
there
allowed
was
to get
nothing
homework.
in there.
This, can I?
Go ahead.
This is more of a rhetorical statement, because we have one person who's been in the position for a while and two not. But pre-COVID, we really didn't have this much of an issue. We had homework. We have educators who have been in the system prior to COVID. Did they throw all their homework away? No. Did they change? Did curriculum change and pacing? Yes, it may have. But all of a sudden, they can't give homework? Where did it go? So that's my concern, is like, we're not asking you to do anything more than you did before. And to the mayor's point, if you're not getting achievement and seeing growth, we'll take the attendance piece out. If that child's showing up every single day, but isn't being assessed to know that they're falling behind or reinforcing all those things, then what good is it? Then it goes back to the teachers not doing their job, apparently, right? I don't know. Do we
I
get that
think-
specific? I mean,
I think a lot of them are doing their jobs.
I think they
I'm
are
just saying.
too.
Jesus.
Again, I think what I was observing was, I think classroom teachers prior to COVID were working towards a healthy balance of what goes home and what doesn't go home. And then, spotlight on the policy, And I think he got some cultural pushback on the policy that came out. And again, I think we as building leaders worked very hard to dispel any miscommunication and to get everything back on track. So yeah, and I understand that this is meant to set the record straight. I certainly appreciate that.
Tried to set it straight about 3 or 4 times in the last couple of years.
How many videos do you have to do? How many emails do you have to send?
Maybe you're right, Arthur. Maybe the one sentence should be, homework may or may not be assigned at the teacher's discretion. Maybe that should be the policy. Maybe you're right.
I'd rather.
Not a bad idea.
And the only thing I would say was change it to educators, so you leave it open for
Poor Mary.
the principals to have a say in it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, based upon the mayor's suggestion of adding at the educator's discretion, do we have interest in that friendly amendment or not? Because we need to move this forward because, yeah, we need to move it forward, something. Do we have a,
Yeah, educator's discretion. I think that's always a good thing.
okay, love you, you're not really allowed to vote here, so nice try.
Oh, you three can, look at back there.
Okay.
He wants you to write
I want you guys to write it.
Okay, so around the table here, I need to look. Are we
Where's it going?
At the
at the
beginning,
beginning
right
of the
before
third
MPS.
paragraph?
At the educator's discretion.
At the educator's
MPS
discretion,
believes that
MPS
work
believes.
beyond the school day.
Again, just my,
I'm not doing may or may not. I will
No,
die on the
that's
stake
fine.
on that one. I'm not doing that one. Already did that.
well, it's just, no, it's my language arts thing. It doesn't,
Dr. Skaza, you were an English teacher.
it's an odd place to put it.
I know because my son was supposed to have you, and then you became principal, and then he didn't have you. So that's how I know you were an English teacher.
And does it really matter? Let's start with that.
You don't need to word mayor, but.
All right, let's just do it.
So what is the question
The
that's being
educator's
posed right now?
discretion,
Comma.
comma.
Yes,
MPS believes that work beyond.
in support of that phrase, introductory phrase.
Okay, so with that, we have a number of paragraphs and a number of bullets. It sounds
So
like
would you read
everyone's,
it again?
I'm not reading through it. I will put out a clean copy before we actually put it up on the website and before it gets sent out to make sure I haven't missed anything. But based upon all of the discussions here, I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the amendments that we've discussed and get rid of the net.
Motion made and seconded to approve as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Superintendent's
collective
evaluation.
thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh my God.
Oh, my goodness.
Mary, your evaluation was awesome. Thank you so much.
We think we'll keep you.
She might not want to stay after
that, yeah.
Rethinking that contract, ain't there? So, this is a public document. In the interest of time and being a little on the punchy side, I think, by this point, I will state for the record that on the this is Superintendent Murphy's composite summative evaluation from the school committee. And on the progress toward the 3 goals, the professional practice goal, maintaining focus on continuous improvement during the transition, we found that that has been met. Professional practice goal, new superintendent induction program was met, and district improvement goal of effective entry and direction setting was met. Each of these standards, instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, professional culture, Each one of them had a number of areas of improvement and some specific recommendations towards goals that we will sit down and establish for next year. Overall, all 4 of the standards were found to be proficient as an aggregate of the scores. There were some comments. I've given you a copy, passed the copy to the entire committee, and we'll find some time to explore goals for next year. Good?
Any questions, any further discussion? Seeing none, calendar discussion, this could be good too.
This is the third go-around for next year's calendar.
This is the third go-round. There was a question that came forward, and so we reached out. In your packet, you would find a large amount of research because we pulled all calendars from as far back as we could, and discovered that we have always had school on November 10th when it falls on a Friday. That has been the history of what Marlborough Public Schools has done. What is different, though, it seems that more and more districts and throughout the state this year are changing that and recognizing November 10th as observing Veterans Day. And we did not want to be out there. It's one thing to discuss that we are the only district with school on that day. At this point, and make that choice, or be in that position and not realize we were going to be in that position. And so we brought it forward as an issue, potentially.
Veterans Day falls on November 11th,
Yes, which is Saturday.
period.
That's the way we've always been.
Offices be open on the Friday?
I don't think
I
so.
don't know that.
No.
That's the question. And I think what happened is, because I'm privy to the emails that Mrs. Sibilio gets, the secretaries, the superintendent's secretaries have a listserv, and chatter was going back and forth amongst different people about that Friday, and no one, we're literally like the only district.
Which wasn't true in March.
Massachusetts that has school that day.
Yeah, which wasn't true when we first talked about it in March, but it seems like everyone's changed.
This year, November 10th will be a day off from school. Any further discussion?
You're one of 7.
That's why I just asked. We're going to take a vote on it. Is there a motion to accept the calendar as amended?
So, I mean, does that mean that the last day of school, everything moves? Because then we have to add and, so.
Motion to accept, like I motion
Take
second.
it. Motion made and seconded to approve the calendar
Yeah, you
as
can-
amended.
You have to make the motion.
She just
Yes.
did.
No, she
I seconded
seconded
it.
your motion. Flip. He can't make a motion.
Motion to
Gets stupid after
amend
10
the
o'clock.
calendar.
To have November 10th as a holiday.
So, I mean, what is that your recommendation to us?
Yes, I think that's where we're at, yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carries. Acceptance of gifts, Puma North America, Kane Elementary School, $100.
Motion to accept.
Motion to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carries. Letter to support New England Innovative Academy.
Yes, this is the letter that I referenced earlier in my report. It just clarifies so that they, for their documentation, that they have your full approval. So we're included the letter to be signed by representative of the school committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, Opposed, carries. Subcommittees, any subcommittee reports? You're not having another damn policy meeting, are you?
It never stopped.
Oh, my
They go on.
God, if you would like me to. Oh, my goodness.
Any reports of subcommittees? Seeing none, members forum. Ms. Matthews.
I reviewed the warrant and I will sign.
Thank you, we'll pay people.
Excellent. So this is our last regularly scheduled meeting for the 2022-23 school year. I hope everyone has a great summer, and
We have a member who will be missed.
Mr. Diaz, I couldn't say anything before because I would have burst into tears, but it will be a hole in our hearts.
In mind, thank you.
The only thing I want to say, Doug, is, you know, you've done a lot of good things for the district. There's no chance that school bus strike would have been finalized without his involvement. I know he and I had over 30 phone calls in 5 days, because I counted them, and we had over a dozen text conversations over the 5 days. But it wouldn't have been settled without all the work you put into it, so thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, we all did that together. Thank you.
Best of luck. If we can do anything to help you, please reach out, because we owe you that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And you gotta go back and mention again about the food, the
Yeah.
food situation, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You were the problem solver. You helped to make that happen. You were a huge conduit and you were a huge advocate. And this community is indebted to your service for making sure that so many families were taken care of. So I just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I appreciate the kind
Marlborough's
words.
in a much better place because of you.
Thank you. I just want to say, nothing that I ever did, I did by myself. There was a lot of great people that I was working alongside. Many of them are in this room, and it's just been an absolute honor. So thank you all very much.
Any other members? Seeing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Wait, no discussion?